Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Gambit #1. It is a giant-sized first issue. This is Gambit's first ongoing solo series, and it is cover dated February 1999. The cover captions exclaim, "From the pages of the X-Men, Gambit, the most mysterious X-Man of all," in his own monthly mag. So it's kind of a surprise because, of course, Gambit was a very popular X-Man during the 90s, that he didn't have sooner a solo series of his own, rather like Wolverine's, but here it is at the end of the decade. And this particular cover is by Brandon Peterson, inked by Tim Townsend, with colors by Liquid there. And there was a series of variant covers, so kind of interesting in terms of the way the comic industry would go, as it is in the present, with variant covers for #1 issues. And this is one of 6 variants. You see there was a gimmick too in the cover corner box, where the cover corner box had playing cards. This one is the Jack of Diamonds, and so there were cards for the 10 of Diamonds all the way to Ace. And the covers were by Steve Skroce, of course. He did 2 covers, the main newsstand version, as well as a variant cover for Dynamic Forces. And then the 3 other cover artists, or rather, let me think about that, 3 other cover artists were Adam Polina, Carlos Pacheco, and Tim Bradstreet. So let me know in the comment section which of these variant covers you have in your collection, if you do have this issue. This cover itself, it's pretty well drawn, and of course really our focus goes to Gambit, but we have behind him the Marauders with Mr. Sinister, and so that of course taps into part of Gambit's mysterious past. We learned in Uncanny X-Men 350 that Gambit's dark secret was that he led the Marauders into the Morlock tunnels and was in effect a help for the mutant massacre that was covered in comics back in 1986, and he feels guilty over that. His dark secret has come out, and it's of course affected his relationship with Rogue, but also with the X-Men. But currently he's back with the X-Men, but living down in the boathouse on the domain of the Xavier estate. And here too, though, we have someone who's not a member of the Marauders, and that is the Executioner. Over here we see the creative team, so Fabian Nicieza back at Marvel and writing Gambit once again, Steve Skroce on art, and Rob Hunter on the inks. Let's open this one up to the first page. There are 34 pages of story and art in this issue, so this is going to be probably a longish video, and I'll do my best to keep it moving. So we see here that we have a interior shot of a computer laboratory, and what is going on is this woman here, we'll learn her name in due course, is speaking. "Secrets," she begins, "we all have them. Some get taken to the grave." So that's an interesting opening. It's thoughtful in respect of Gambit, readers always wondering about his mysterious past. And she continues, "Many centuries ago, Garba Xin ruled in what we call the Hopei province of China. If you lived in the shadows of the Wu Tai Shan range, then you lived under his thumb. Far as ancient warlords go, he wasn't a cupcake, but he could have been worse. He was both a visionary and a savage, and we finally uncovered the 12th and final temple of Xin's 12th and final child." And so this man here says he's Anwar Anyubar. "We're all in your debt, Sekhmet," and she replies, "Pusha, don't count your chickens yet, Anwar." And we get a little explanation as to who she is. I like this device of the third person narration, but with the little arrows pointing to the characters. She's Sekhmet Conaway, archaeological engineer, mining the past for treasures that will serve the future. Who does that sound like? What does her visual design remind you of? Remember, it's the late 90s, and who was introduced into the culture of gaming in 1996, except for, yes, you're right, Lara Croft, Tomb Raider. So definitely Nicieza and Skroce playing around with the popularity of Tomb Raider in the creation of this new character, Sekhmet Conaway. Anwar Anyubar, CEO of the military research firm Elysian Enterprises. So is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? What is Elysian Enterprises all about? We don't know yet. But look at all the work that Steve Skroce is putting into the art here. We get a very detailed kind of computer laboratory there. We get a detailed look at this ancient Chinese palace as well, temple, with the skull there over the doorway. It's all really, really well done. And what does Anwar say now? He says, "For all the money I've spent, you could show more confidence." And she replies, looking over her shoulder, "Archaeology's an inexact science, boss. Everything I know claims Shin ruled for over 1,000 years before disappearing, and as outlandish as it sounds, that his longevity was the result of a downed extraterrestrial vessel. Well, Leonard Nimoy went in search of the spacecraft and couldn't find it," a reference to 90s television, if I'm not mistaken, a documentary series that Leonard Nimoy fronted. Turn the page, and we get an exterior shot of the computer lab there, and there's the temple. You can see all of the work that Steve Skroce is putting in there, with the security guards in their thermals, because this is a snowy mountainside that the temple has been built in. It's also very, very detailed. And she continues and she says, "But after 4 years, maybe we have. The first 11 temples had bits of info about this vessel, leading to the 12th tomb and the whole enchilada." And Anwar says, you expect we will find the actual ship itself?" And she says, "Okay, exaggeration mode off. I was hoping for more like a detailed schematic of a working piece of the ship. That's all," he asks. "That should be enough," she replies as she hands off her smart tablet to someone down there outside of the panel. And he continues and says, "I suppose." And she replies, "How jaded have you become to the thrill of the chase?" "I thrilled to the ends," he says, "not the means. Do we really need all this security?" So here's the security team here. We'll learn their names. We'll see them in action later on in the story. So again, this is all great work by Steve Skroce. Lots of design work gone into preparing for this particular issue. He would have had a good few months lead up to doing this. And who is this figure in the dark suits? Well, we'll learn that shortly. So she says, "Hey, the Elysian Guard," that's this trio here, Ellenthrope, Cosmo, and Farley. So I assume this is Ellenthrope here, Cosmo, and then Farley there at the end. The American Special Agent Carl Denty, that's him. Just flew inside an hour ago. So he says, "A pleasure to meet you, Mr. Anwar. Because of Shin's supposed past, the Chinese asked my government to," and he hesitates, "protect the site. I was brought in as head of the US Superhuman Investigations Team." And I was going to say Lara Croft. What's her name again? Let's go back here. Sekhmet. She says to him as she comes back up the steps. I love the way that Steve Skroce is totally on top of where characters are in relation to each other. So Anwar is walking out towards the edge of the platform. He arrives by the point that she's walking back up the stairs there. It's such excellent work, and it really goes to show why Steve Skroce went into the film business as a storyboard artist, because really his visual storytelling and his command of space, as well as the acting of figures, is extremely skillful. And you can well believe that a film director would absolutely love to work with a storyboard artist like Steve Skroce. But let's get back into the story. Sekhmet says, "A regular international party. Fear makes for great détente, doesn't it?" And Denty replies, "It's more about power, Ms. Conaway, and knowing how to control its use and abuse." And she replies cheekily, "Well, big boy, we don't have to worry about anyone getting into Shin's tomb unless he happens to be the best thief in the world." So there's quite a lot of dialogue there, quite a lot of setup, but I think it's all very well handled. And this is the segue, this is the transition to Gambit. Of course, it is his title. So he appears now on page 3, and he's hopping over that laser security barrier and going into the temple. So we see the speed lines there. He's walking in silently, casting that long shadow, and we see hanging from a chain the skeletons of People left there as a warning, I suppose, to tomb raiders. In he goes. There are brands lit all the way. It seems like they're actually coming on. How will I express this? That these brands are burning just as he walks into the temple. So it's as if they're automated, yes? And then back in the computer lab where the readings are being taken concerning the temple, Denty says, Farley, I was briefed that you've encountered internal security measures. So Farley must be the head of the Elysian Guard, and he says, all the other temples had him. We lost 10 people to them so far. So Denty replies, I'd heard Ms. Conaway was a maverick, but she's reckless too. What kind of scientist are you, ma'am? So the speech balloon tale is going to the wrong person there. It should still be going to Denty. Instead, it's going to Anwar. And Sekhmet responds, the kind who dreams big and schemes bigger, Mr. Denty. I'd expect a man who monitors superhumans to have a more open mind. And you can see there written in, and this is by hand rather than computer lettering, is Denty's name. And this is an error that's been corrected by editorial just before this went off to the printers. And it may be a reason why also there's such wide gutters here at the margins of the page. And yeah, something's up with this. There was corrections here on these pages and probably this panel too before it went off to the printers, but not time enough to change the tail of the speech balloon. So Sekhmet says, we found a scroll inside the 8th temple. It confirmed that each temple had different safeguards built in, and even though they're nearly 1,000 years old, we learned the hard way that these protective devices can be. So Gambit's walking forward, so they're going to be activated, and we're going to see Gambit in action. And so here it goes. Here he is dodging through these, what on earth would I call them? Like these blocks, these automated blocks that are coming to crush him from either side of the temple hallway. And he just manages to slide free, but they catch his coat, so he slips out of the coat there. And we have our... how will I express this? Like declaration. I really like it. It's kind of like imitating like the opening of a film. Stanley presents, turn the page. Oh, by the way, I should note also like the computer coloring blurring of the movement of these huge blocks that are flying across the floor to crush Gambit. And then, yes, we have Gambit, the logo for him that's been used since his first miniseries. And we have our creative team. So Fabian Nicieza and Steve Skroce there credited as storytellers. Rob Hunter is the inker. We also have, very interestingly, a creator credit for Jim Lee and Chris Claremont. At this point, 1998, Claremont was back at Marvel in the office of editor. And so back with Marvel, there must have been some thought to giving him credit. Maybe he consulted on this comic. I wouldn't be surprised about that. Gambit exclaims there, drog, which loosely translates as dope. And then he starts monologuing. Oldest trick in the book. I almost fell for it. Okay, what was the second verse? So these are clues as to the defenses from the scroll taken from the 8th temple. The temple lives to judge the worthiness of all worshippers. So he escapes from these 4 bludgeons that are coming out of the walls, the floor and the ceiling. He hops free of that. Piece of cake. He asks rhetorically, no thanks, already having one. Next up, taste of earth's bounty or be swallowed by shame. So the ramp here over this chasm gives way, and Gambit like hops across using his bow staff to land on the other side. And then inside the computer laboratory, one of the technicians gives notice that the motion sensors have registered movement inside the temple. So everybody's in shock about that. but it is the best thief in the world. We have the title of the story there, The Man of Steel, with a pun on steel. Shannon Blanchard on the colours, the computer colours, and Richard Starkings and Comic Craft's Emerson Miranda on the digital lettering. Right, so let's continue here. So again, we get to see Gambit in action, evading the traps and security measures of the temple. So we get to see really cool DeLuca effect here of him somersaulting around and then down onto the ground there on the other side of that big chasm. And then he's right into the burial chamber. And again, you can see all of the work that Steve Skroce is doing in the art here, furnishing this burial chamber. We have these skeletal warriors here with their clubs, their spiked clubs. And of course, we can expect that they're going to come into action at some point. And there in the background, we have a portrait of the Emperor, I suppose, Shin, and whatever it is that Gambit is trying to steal there. So he is, I think it's Sekhmet that's providing the dialogue here. He, she, or it just reached the burial chamber, but watch, now is when your typical Tomb Raider gets cocky. So close to the prize, practically tasting the money he's going to make, he forgets the little details, like that one final safeguard. So Gambit is unhooking the prize here, and then these chains start moving. To protect my son, the dead will live again. So he's quoting from that scroll from the 8th temple. He's got his ace of spades out, so we're going to see him in action again when we turn the page. And there it is, like he dodges the smashing club of the giant skeletal puppet robot statues on a pulley system, he says. So that explains it. Here we see him in action, sending flying those biokinetically charged cards of his. Up here we have the reveal that Carl Denti is the executioner. So we see it there, like half his face, representing the costume that he normally wears. I wish I could be even more help, he says. For now, I'll keep the executioner out of it. So the security team are scrambled to intercept the thief. Then we're back into the action again. Just such a lot of work by Steve Skroce on these pages. And again, a DeLuca effect here of Gambit somersaulting and swinging around on the chains of these skeletal guards. And there he is, sending flying again, more biokinetically charged cards. Really like the double lighting on his face there, that look of grim determination on his face too. And the cards are having the intended effect. They're blowing up those giant statues on the pulley system. And then Gambit comes racing out the front of the temple. So this is real, it's Tomb Raider stuff, it's Indiana Jones style stuff. It's good fun, isn't it? So how's he going to get around this security team that are coming for him? Well, he leaps up in the air to evade their shots. Outgoing, he exclaims, kicking them in the jaws. And he dodges rifle fire here. And Carl Denti recognizes him. Gambit, thief, mutant, alleged member of the outlaw X-Men. According to our intelligence files, he can biokinetically charge objects. So Gambit dancing around, all the shots fired at him. And then he gets punches in the face. This particular operative of the Elysian outfit, who is hovering around there on he's in some kind of hover suit. You can see like the energy signatures there. So Gambit grabs onto it, twists around, punches him in the face, and then uses him as a getaway. So that's all really well done by Steve Skroce. He said, okay, if I use you to make my getaway, but in the kind of, what would I say, like in all of the chaos, it looks like Sekhmet has been knocked off the platform there, and that's a long fall to the ground. So Gambit spies her, and He says, escape, damsel in distress, escape, damsel in distress. He's weighing them up, and he goes to save the damsel in distress. So he saves her there from crashing masonry and lands her safely on the ground and says to her, I guess you're flushed because of all the excitement. She responds lamely, sorry about stealing your stuff. He says bye, and he races out into the snow just as Anwar's arriving. He's there. Did he hurt you? Not quite, she says. And Denty, he's gone. How? The closest cover is 1 kilometer away. The mutant either learned how to teleport or... Let's turn the page. But look at all of the control of the space that Steve Skroce has. The storytelling is excellent. Let's turn the page. And then the scene shifts. Maybe someone helped him. And here we are somewhere else in the world. And Gambit is sitting down with someone who addresses him by his surname, LeBeau. And Gambit says, courier, I've seen you looking better. And the guy says, the fur bikini chafed me for days. How was your flight to Paris? Any getaway is good, I guess. You know how this new son manages that trick? I've asked more questions than that myself. Who is he? What does he want? And how's he convincing so many of us to do whatever he wants? And Gambit, or rather, the courier says, I know as much about him, if he even is a he, as you do. And Gambit asks, why would he want this thing? What is it? I'm a messenger, Remy, says the courier. I'm paid to deliver, not question. Company line aside, it looks like a gauntlet or an interface. For what? Asks Gambit. And then the guy changes the subject, offering him a cigar. But this is really interesting, just when you think about it. Like, we are inferring what's going on here, that Gambit was employed by someone that's known as New Son, that this guy is in his employ as well, that this New Son wants this MacGuffin, let's call it, and we don't know what it is, a gauntlet, an interface, something or other. And then we have the change of subject. So we're piecing it together as we go along as readers. So Gambit doesn't accept the cigar. He says, cigarettes are my poison. And the courier says, the boss's little trip to the Antarctic is proving worthwhile, isn't it? So another clue that Gambit was recruited in the Antarctic when Rogue left him there at the end of Uncanny X-Men 350. And the courier continues and says, or rather Gambit says, I would have made it out on my own eventually. Tell that to the one who found you face down in the snow, semi-comatose and muttering about someone named Cher. So of course that's a reference to Gambit muttering about Rogue. But who was the one that found him face down in the snow? And what does it have to do with that smoky, wispy woman that seems to be Gambit's beneficiary and that got him out of the Antarctic? And what's her relationship to the New Son? It's all a mystery. But I love the storytelling here. Again, I've said it already a few times, but I just like the shot here of the courier offering the box of cigars, Gambit lighting his cigarette. Then we have the shot of him holding his sunglasses, and as he walks away, he's putting on his sunglasses as well. It's all so well done here. And the guy sitting back enjoying his cigar too. Like the body language, the acting of the characters. Steve Skroce, just a great artist, fantastic. And now we get an interlude in New Orleans. So of course that's where Gambit grew up, but was he born there? We don't know. Things are a mess, aren't they, Jean-Luc Lebeau? So that's Gambit's adopted father, or adoptive father. That's the correct phrasing. Who are you? Where am I? He asks in a meditation pose. Why? We're inside your dreams, Jean-Luc. And most people who know me call me Fontenelle. So that's this middle-aged woman here. And she is asking Jean-Luc about his misunderstood adopted son. What do you know of Remy? Jean-Luc asks. Le Diable Blanc, the White Devil. Rumours spread across the Big Easy. He was born with an angel's smile and the devil's eye, taken from the place where he was born by the Thieves' Guild. So that's it there, the baby being taken. But the place taken from the place where he was born. But where was he born? The antiquary considered every child a work of art, worth stealing and selling. But he deemed this baby with the red eyes to be worth owning. So this must be the antiquary here with the flight goggles. And then she continues and says, that troubled you, didn't it, Jean-Luc, turning an infant over to that vile man? So here we see baby Gambit on this bed surrounded by all these women. Even though your fellow thieves cursed the babe as an abomination because of his red eyes. You knew he was well cared for, but the thought of the child spending his life in the velvet ministry angered you. And yes, says Jean-Luc, so here must be the antiquarian with baby Gambit having his portrait painted. It's intriguing stuff. Let's continue here. And she continues and says, so you play chess with the boy's life. And Jean-Luc replies, I couldn't confront the antiquary directly. Not only would that have caused problems within the guild clans, he was also too connected to the outside world. I managed to place the boy with others for a time. He had to learn our ways of the shadows of the back alleys. Remy became a part of Fagin's mob, orphans of the streets, run by the excommunicated offspring of a doomed romance between an assassin and thief. I kept a distant but watchful eye over the boy from then on. Wasn't much of a surprise when he was roof combing and he saw a beautiful little girl walking into an assassin's guild trap. Even at 8 years old, Remy never met a lady who wasn't worth rescuing. So here he is. What a great shot, like this up shot. We're looking up via the cone, via the girl's face, up into the sky as Remy jumps down. And he is holding these two mallets that he's using as weapons in order to knock out these two huge goons who didn't see what hit them. And this is his first meeting with Belladonna Beaudreau. That's when Le Dable Blanc first met Belladonna Beaudreau, says Fontenelle, daughter of Marius Beaudreau, patriarch of the premier clan of the Assassin's Guild, trained since birth in the killing arts. Dawson's Creek meets Pulp Fiction, so a real late 90s reference there. They were children, it was a pure innocent love, says Jean-Luc, and she replies here more cynically, oh, did I forget to clean the idiot sign painted on my head? Was the bond forged between Remy and Belle really an accident? Or the fact that days later the best thief in New Orleans allowed a 10-year-old to pick his pocket? Silence is always such a wonderful confirmation, and the bride even chose to wear white. How darling. So they married young, and Jean-Luc says, I arranged their marriage in order to create peace between the assassins and the thieves. My machinations aside, after adopting him, I couldn't have loved Remy any less had he been my own son, nor could his love for Belladonna be any truer. So true love here, the two guilds, assassins and thieves. Turn the page, and then of course Belladonna had a jealous brother. I'm getting misty, says Fontenelle. So then, why was your son still excommunicated from the guild? Belle's brother, Julien, could not abide their marriage. He challenged Remy to a duel and Julien lost. We thought him dead at the time, although it was deemed self-defense. The assassins demanded some form of penance from Remy. Exile seemed preferable to execution. And then that's of course how Gambit fell in with the X-Men. I like how Fontenelle calls the X-Men those superhero Don Quixotes, tilting at the windmills of prejudice against mutants, fighting to create a world where humans and mutants alike can coexist. How noble, how futile, how very unlike him. So she continues and says, you know, today's Remy LeBeau is a different person than the boy you raised. I think I've seen enough. Sweet dreams, Jean-Luc. So he wakes up from his dream. That's the end of the interlude. He asks, what has my boy gotten himself into this time? And then with the mention of the X-Men there, again, what an interesting angle that Steve Skroce comes up with. We see Gambit down there with Kitty Pryde, and I think that's Nina, and it must be from the end of the hunt for Xavier. And we have the switch there to the Xavier Institute for Higher Learning, Westchester County, New York. And Gambit is down at the boathouse, and he's eating a sandwich, and then Nightcrawler, who has rejoined the X-Men after the disbanding of Excalibur, teleports beneath the dock and pulls Gambit into the water, into the lake, grabs his sandwich, and then Gambit has left a biokinetically charged card beneath him on the dock there, which pops off and catches Nightcrawler in the butt. It's funny stuff. It's really, again, the storytelling is so excellent on this 9-panel grid by Steve Skroce. Gambit pulling himself out of the water, Kitty Pryde arriving. We get to see the display of her power as she's walking through the wooden walls of the boathouse. The rest of the X-Men arrive, and Kitty's remarking on the time delay of Gambit's kinetic charge. When do you pick that one up? And Wolverine arrives and says, boy's a regular secret machine, Kitty. And Gambit comes back with takes one to know one, Wolverine. So, out of Sig's mon ami here, he pulls out of his travel bag the box of cigars, a Cohiba, nice. Since when you smoke Cubans? So he wasn't gifted the box of cigars by the courier. Did he steal them? I think that's what we're supposed to infer. And so he walks off. He says, I don't just carry him around to impress people, but let that be our little secret. And Storm says, there was a message for you, a Jacob Gavin. Great Stormy, he replies. A problem? Nah. And I like the way that he addresses her as Stormy, because that goes back to the very beginning. That's what he called her then. And she was always so annoyed by it. But here time has passed and she's not picking him up on it. But Fabian Nicieza remembers, so I like the little nod to the long-standing relationship between Gambit and Storm. So Wolverine's enjoying the cigar. I like this little business of a fly buzzing around as well. Wolverine says, nice drag. Why would the courier be calling the gumbo? So that reveals that Wolverine, who knows everyone in the Marvel Universe, knows Jacob Gavin, the courier, and now we know the courier's name. So Storm asks, Logan, you know this man? His father. They run an international messenger service, and then the cigar, biokinetically charged, blows up in his mouth. And the fly's buzzing around Wolverine, and he stabs it on the end of his bone claw. Just look at that look in his face. It's good comedy from Nicieza and Skroce. It's well done. Rogue here goes after Remy. She says, you got a heck of a death wish. How mad you think I made him, Rogue? He asks. He can cope. The same way you do, she asks. Coping is the 24/7 my life, Sherry says. And here I was hoping for an angst-free day, she responds. This Gavin, old drinking buddies usually don't have code names. Worried, Rogue, or suspicious, he asks. And this little piece of dialogue will get picked up later towards the very end of the issue. Maybe both, she says. And here I was hoping for a guilt-free day. So he walks into the boathouse, and then the scene switches to Anwar. And where is he? We don't know exactly, but there's communication coming in from Denti, and it looks like they're en route to Croatia. Once the Croatian government gave the convoy clearance, I dispatched, or rather he's en route to Croatia, or is in Croatia. I dispatched a freelance operative to assist you. He should be there shortly. So Anwar asks, Conaway, you heard? She's on another line. Convoy, Croatia, kickbutt clearance, cool. These alloys like nothing we've ever seen. So she's studying things from the temples, and he says to her, please pay attention and have the Elysian Guard secure the route. Make sure, so he's aboard this plane. Make sure we do not encounter our friend from China again. And she says, or he says, I'll be there soon on the jet plane. And then we have Gambit, a silent goodbye to Rogue, but she's awake. and she hears him leaving the estate on his Harley Davidson motorcycle. Turn the page. There's this is a dense comic. Like I said, this video was going to go long, and I'm feeling it going long. And part of the reason for it is there's a lot of words on the page. And I was thinking before making the review video, because I've read the comic in advance, is, there is information that is important in the dialogue. In particular, it gives you a sense of the characters. And so it's important to kind of note those things, but a little less, fewer words. I'll put it that way, 20% less words. And I think this would be a smoother read, and it'd certainly make my life easier going through the comic. So what's happening here? So it looks like Anwar has made it to Elysian Enterprises, and they have a research facility nestled in the Velebit Mountains of Croatia. And they're on the line to Denti, and he's with the convoy transporting the I'm going to call it the MacGuffin to this particular research facility. That's what's happening. That's what's going on. And then we get a little bit of background here on the Executioner, a man who dons the technological artifacts of the X-Men's greatest foes. His agenda is to execute any mutant suspected of being a danger to society. But who's there on his Harley Davidson looking down at the convoy? So we've got the big articulated truck. We've got these three other vehicles, yellow, red, and blue. And Gambit, they're putting a stick of gum in his mouth. That will actually come into the story too. Time to make the donuts, he says. Great drawings and no fear of detail or drawing tech or angles from Steve Skroce. He can draw anything. So look at that for a great shot there. We're looking up at the front of the articulated truck. The Evel Knievel impersonator has issues of his own. Why is he stealing things for the new son? How did Gambit get himself stuck between a rock and a hard place again? Is it blackmail or in the name of some noble misguided goal? Or is it a bit of both? Courier told him the gauntlet he obtained in China wasn't good enough. The real key to the mysterious puzzle was actually inside the sarcophagus. And Elysian Enterprises may now have the materials they needed to build a ship that will race the gods. But Gambit has had the next thing, a Harley. Okay, so I was a little bit confused there. Obviously, the MacGuffin is not in this articulated truck. It's what they took out of the temple from the sarcophagus that's in here. The MacGuffin went to the new son, right? And it's not what he wanted. So Gambit is employed again in order to steal from the convoy what the new son actually wants. There we go. You got to keep your brain engaged when reading this particular comic because of all the twists and turns. Again, a great DeLuca effect there. Love the speed lines as well. Think it's all really effective as Gambit balances on the front of the truck. Says hello to the driver. What's going on? Asks Anwar. We're under attack, says the Executioner. Is it this Gambit person, or as I like to call him, Mr. Anyabar, a dead man walking? So again, we get another great shot of Gambit springing off the front of the truck, and he's dodging here as he springs off this mobile mounted machine gun on the back of this car. I'm going to call it a car, and he's pulling nonchalantly a pack of cards from its case. New pack smell, he says. So he's totally relaxed, totally calm, totally in the zone, as we might say. And he lands on, it looks like the back of the car there, touches down. And he's charging up the cards and getting ready to go into action. Really, really great stuff. Let's turn the page, and here we go. Lots and lots of action here. The cards are going off. Look at the bullet casings here spewing out the side of the car. Like, great design work by Steve Skroce. Like, everything is logical. Everything makes sense. He knows what he's doing. He's like, if he's designed these things out of his head, they make sense in terms of the way they look and operate. Like the spread of the fire from the machine gun, all of the holes and rips made in Gambit's coat, He's sending off the charged cards there underneath the articulated truck because he's trying to get into it, of course, because that's where the sarcophagus is. Meanwhile, the security team, they're messaging each other, trying to see where he's going. Cosmo, he's under your car, says one of them. He charges a card. Here you can see he's uncoupling tubes underneath the truck. And he's disabling, it's not the truck, it's the car. He's disabling the blue car. And then he slides on the ground on a piece of the undercarriage of the car like a skateboard. It's so well done, the storytelling by Steve Skroce. Really excellent. Love the speed lines, love the perspective. Look at the tight perspective angle on that wheel here at the side of this particular panel. So good. And the thick lines around the bullet casings, the shells. Really excellent stuff. And I also like the fact that Gambit, Fabian Nicieza could have given him some tough, not a tough guy, but like Gambit is more like rogues. A rogue's kind of smart aleck, jokey monologue. But he's not giving him anything like that because Gambit's concentrating and things are moving fast here. So I like that. He's sliding towards me, says one of them. And yeah, so he swings around onto the back of the truck. Looks like he even bounces off the bonnet of this yellow car here. And then he uses the electrical wiring, turning it into cracking it like a whip, turning it into a fuse. Everything is moving quite fast here. And it looks like he blows a hole in the side of the truck. And then he charges his bow staff here. It looks like he's got maybe a mini bow staff that becomes a larger one. And he's using it against the Elysian security team. Executioner's watching here. Mark targeted. Tactical team clear out. Move out of the way, he says. Then he starts blasting a Gambit from his particular craft. Gambit is thinking all the time he's doing all of this. Ancient ship, Garba Shin. That's why the name sounded familiar. I've read about him in the X-Men's files. And this is clever from Nicieza. He's going to reference his own work on X-Force. Shin once controlled the downed spaceship that was stolen by Apocalypse. Supposedly the aliens who built the vessel were godlike beings known as Celestials, meaning any technology from that ship can't fall into the hands of these people. And that was detailed in X-Force number 37, written by Nicieza. So he's calling back to the last of his work at Marvel before he left to work at, wasn't it Valiant or Acclaim or something like that? And here's Gambit going into the truck finally. 3, 2, 1. He is down into the ship. He's sees that his coat is shot to bits. Coat shot. Hey, a joke. 33,000 rounds and not one hit. A Cajun with the look of the Irish. Joke 2. Laugh 0. Now the hard part. Should anyone have access to the information inside the cargo hold? Let's turn the page. And he's caught by Executioner. Even your underwear has built-in security systems, right? White jockeys, I'm a traditional kind of guy. So we've got to have our superhero banter. Yeah, racial hatred is so apple pie, retorts Gambit. I'm not a bigot, says Executioner. Black, white or green, a perp is a perp. Got to work on your supervillain rant, says Gambit, sounding too much like a cop. And a 2-bit thief would know from cops, retorts Executioner. And Gambit says, mon ami, I'm at least a 10-bit thief. So Executioner here, he's pulling out a sword. And still the dialogue is going on between them. Gambit's talking about how the lorry contains something that could be turned into a very nasty weapon. And it could be turned over to whoever, and turn whoever has it into another Apocalypse or Sinister. Oh, but whoever you're stealing this for would be the right hands. And Gambit admits, truth to tell, I don't know. That's why I decided that no one is going to get it. And how do you plan to enforce that decision? Says Executioner as he pulls Gambit's head up by the hair. And it looks like he's going to cut Cut his throat with gum, says Gambit. He opens his mouth and he's biokinetically charged the gum he's been chewing from the beginning of this action sequence and spits it right at Executioner's faceplate mask. Knocks him out the windshield of the truck all the way out. So well handled here, and it's in particular a panel like this. All the detail of the shattered windshield and glass, the sparking electrics, the smoke from the explosion in the engine. It reminds me so much of Jeff Darrow. I mean, I mentioned Jeff Darrow earlier as an influence on Skroce. At least I think he's an influence. You let me know what you think in the comments. I like the fact that Nicieza finally has pulled back on all the words. So we have a sense that everything is happening super fast here, and Rogue is arriving at speed. So she arrives into the empty, what's it called, cab of the truck, of the lorry, and she flies all the way into the trailer of the lorry, picks Gambit up, punches out the roof of the trailer. Thanks for the save, she says to him. Don't mention it, share. And then we get like the aftermath with the reporting in from the Elysian Guard. Injuries but no fatalities, sir. And Anwar asks, in the cargo? Very expensive toothpicks, sir. So blown to smithereens. Cosmo, Ellenthrope, Farley, you're all fired, he says. And it looks like Sekhmet is smitten. Gambit gets points for style and an A+ tush. And Anwar asks her, Sek, why aren't you angry over this? Every single scrap of info is safe, she says, inside my old grey matter. Remember, I'm a genius because of your efforts. And then she pauses, and then Daddy. So the CEO of Elysian Technology is her father, but is he her biological father? Or what's going on here? I'm a genius because of your efforts, Daddy. Is she a creation of Elysian Industries technology? Like, it's just, we're getting hints here of mysteries to be revealed in the future. And that's Nicieza drawing us right into the story. Here's Executioner with his exploded faceplate. Round 1 to you, Gambit. So there'll be a round 2 is the implication of that. And finally, page 34, an 8-panel grid here with a top tier and a bottom tier, different settings. So Rogue and Gambit in Croatia, up in the mountains. Why'd you come alone, Gumbo? She asks him. Basic math, share. Info came from a less than reputable source. Elysian is a legit company doing legit business. Didn't want to dirty the X-Men's hands. Oh, cool, she says. So you're going to fly back commercial, or would you rather go first class? So she's going to fly back to the States. What I find interesting here is that Skroce and Hunter are leaving Rogue's lips open for the colorist, which is different from, the way that would have been done by the likes of a Mark Silvestri or a Jim Lee, where you would have had rendering on the lips. But here, no, it's left open for the colorist. And that really is a feature of the late 90s art of the likes of Steve Skroce, Ed McGuinness, and Terry Dodson. So, interlude 2, we're in someone else's dream, and it turns out to be this Duncan Gavin character. So Fontanelle meets him in his dream, and she says, "You're a strange man, Jacob Jr. How unhappy is the new son over his Cajun recruit's actions?" And the guy replies, "You tell me, Fonty, I already got Gambit's next assignment. He has to steal something from the X-Men." Because this is a dream, there's this weird stuff going on with his face transferring to different figures in the dream. Like, it's creative, inventive, weird stuff in the art. But you have to imagine this was a pretty dense script that Steve Skroce got from Fabian Nicieza. I mean, 34 pages of story and art. It's dense. It's a story with a beginning, middle, and an end. There's satisfying action. There's setting up of mysteries, and the series has its own character and style from issue 1, and it's fun, is what I would say. So a little bit of editorial here, looking for people to write in letters and answer these questions. What villains would you most like to see Gambit go up against, etc., etc. Preview of art, splash pages, and maybe a cover there from upcoming issues by Steve Skroce, inked by Rob Hunter. Always nice to see black and white art like that back in the era. And then the final 4 pages of the issue are given over to the Journal of Nathaniel Essex, aka Mr. Sinister. What you get on these 4 pages is basically everything, all the major points that are known about Gambit from his very first appearance up to the present date. And you've got art from various creators who've worked on the character over the years, like that's Joe Madureira there, Steve Skroce here, Jim Lee there, and so on and so forth. So really what you get in this diary is just everything that a reader who has been following Gambit since his first appearance in Uncanny X-Men 366 would know about him. And so there's nothing new in here, but it's clever to include this. Look, it goes all the way up to Gambit being left in Antarctica and how he got out of there. Of course he got out of there, says Sinister in his journal, though through circumstances that remain unclear even to me. He's once again an X-Man, but things will never be the same now. Certainly he must earn their trust all over again, and perhaps Rogue's love as well, because of the revelation of his role in the Morlock massacre. And there you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Gambit's solo series, issue number 1. And yeah, it's a fun one in my estimation. What are your thoughts on it? Let me know in the comments section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.